Moscow correspondent Diana Magne joins me now with the latest. Diana is joining us any minute now. And Diana, I think we're going to be able to hear your mic in terms of what is the latest that we've learnt over the last couple of hours.
Well, we had a televised meeting between General Surovikin, who commands Russia's operations in Ukraine, and the Defence Minister Sergei Shoigu, where essentially Surovikin said, we cannot supply forces in Kherson anymore, and to save the lives of Russian servicemen, we believe that we should withdraw to take up defensive positions on the eastern side of the Dnieper River, which is essentially the other side, the Russian side of the river, essentially, effectively leaving Kherson to the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians had telegraphed that they would be launching this Kherson counteroffensive a couple of months ago, before they even retook that area around Kharkiv, and it's been a slow and steady grind. But there have been indications over the past week or so that Russia was preparing for some kind of managed retreat. They had, for example, and this is one particularly strange example, but they'd removed the body of Potemkin, who was the lover of Catherine II, Catherine the Great, and taken him to the other side of the Dnieper River. And they'd blown up a couple of bridges had been blown up, making it difficult to supply Russian troops. So, I mean, there has been one comment from Kyiv that this may not necessarily be the case, and there have been suggestions in the run-up to this possible withdrawal that Russia could be preparing a trap. But I don't think that you see the head of the Russian command in Ukraine talk to the defence minister on live television and say we're withdrawing to the other side of the river, and then for it all to be a ruse, because essentially what you have now is that they have told the Russian nation, this was televised, this was broadcast on state TV, that they are withdrawing from Kherson. And Kherson was the only and the first and the only regional city that the Russians took. It was a long way from the original plan. Well, I mean, whatever the original plan was. But Kherson is a long way from Donetsk and Luhansk, which, of course, were partially under Russian-backed control for a long time. And it was a massive overreach if now Russia has decided to retreat. So if we look back on the last 9 months, Russia pushed for Kyiv at the beginning. It had to withdraw, a managed withdrawal, it said at the time. Then we saw the Kharkiv counteroffensive, where a lot of territory was recaptured up around Kharkiv, the loss of Liman to Ukrainian forces, and now this apparent retreat from Kherson. I think this is a very significant moment in the war. And interestingly, one where Vladimir Putin has effectively wiped his hands of having to take political or military ownership of this decision. He was touring a hospital today. There's just been new video of him meeting with a medical head released by the Kremlin. So I think he's very much said, you know, we'll let the generals take the flak, if you will. And the justification for this difficult decision, as the defence minister called it, was to save the lives of Russian servicemen. But really, a lot of Russian servicemen have died taking Kherson in the first place, defending Kherson after that. So I think this will raise a lot of questions in Russia about why they had to move so far if they now have to retreat. So it's a significant moment. It does mean, though, that if Russia withdraws to the eastern side of the Dnieper River, they can consolidate their positions. As Surovikin said today, he can send soldiers to bolster other positions along the front line. So there might be reasons why Russia would decide to do that as winter approaches, to consolidate its defensive positions all the way along that line. Nevertheless, Kherson was the first and the only regional city they took, and now they have had to give it up. And I think there will be a lot of rejoicing in Ukraine and a lot of questions in Russia as to how this special military operation is going.